Yeah, so I want the chat box up, probably to the side, and then the recording
whatever in the green is showing to them, like that.
Mm-hmm. All right, and what about the recording then now?
Now, I've got to do a different way.
All right.
Hopefully I can get in there in time.
Okay. I think we're going to start. Is it all right if I get started while we look at that? Yeah? Okay.
So, leave.
Hello, how you doing? We're sorting out some recordings while we're onto it. Just you today? Yeah, it's the room. There's something going on with the settings. So, and because we've got external students, we've got to do double. How's your week been?
It's been all right, mate. It's been a crazy day today with Tom Hanks' diagnosis. So I work for Screen Queensland. So
what was his? I should know, but I've been flat out all.
he and his wife.
No way! I was flat out all week.
Yeah.
No, my God, we had little dramas ourselves this week, just with kids coughing at school, like literally just a cough. Checked out from the doctor, fine. Oh yeah, it's like that's just what I need. So anyway, hello. Just a few sticky notes. There we go. Hey guys, how are you? Good, thank you. We're just trying to get our recordings going for our external students. Okay. Hello. There you go. All right. There you are. So we might... Is that recording now?
No, it's not.
It's not. All right. The echo's recording? All right. So that just won't record. Yeah, okay.
No, echo will record everything that's there.
Okay, that's fine. That's you there, is it, Ross?
Yeah, that's it.
All right then, that's fine. Well, we'll have to...
You never know, I might jump in on my PC.
Okay, well, we'll have to just stick with the echo recording then, I guess, for now, yeah? All right then.
Just have to tell that. I might actually get into Anne's.
Yeah.
I can't hear, but I can get into her profile and change it.
All right, thanks. Hi everybody, how are you? Good week? Yeah? All survived the wet to get here? Yeah. We might just give it a few more minutes, okay, before we get started. So unfortunately, we still have a problem with recordings, but hopefully not sound. So as you might all know, we do external and internal at the same time, which is why we spend a bit of time fiddling around with the recordings. So, but the room happens to have a few glitches, so... Yeah. Well, look, it should be fixed up. It's being recorded by echo as well. So if Zoom doesn't work, it'll be recorded by... You're familiar with echo recordings? Yeah. I think Zoom's going to be a bit dodgy in this room as in terms of recordings, but echo definitely will work. So you are going to be able to listen to recordings at home. But that said, this is a pretty hands-on tutorial. A lot of what we do is going to be, things like butcher paper and doing exercises on your tables. So... if you're listening from home, you're going to have kind of pauses where you'll spend 10 to 15 minutes going through your exercises basically on your own. So, yeah. So you've got to be comfortable with that. Yeah. Anyway, we might just start the reflection exercises. So don't worry about that for now. That was just something we got going. Let me know, everybody, if you can see a message for me in Zoom chat. I'll try not to overdo the multitasking. So I just want everyone to grab a sticky note. Has everyone got some sticky notes on their table? Yep. No? I'll grab you a few sticky notes if you do. Just throughout the session, I'm going to ask a few reflection questions. Basically, this is just for yourself. I don't look at it. It doesn't get tested. You don't even have to use a sticky note if you don't want to, but you can. And the first question, and it's basically going to be pretty regular every week, is... Like I said, use a sticky note or just think about it in your own mind, whatever you like. So the first question is, what activity is planned today? So tutorials are really student-centred in this course. There's not a lot of new content, so a lot of it's applied. So we just want you to get focused. I can even bring it up if you like. I'll scroll down a bit. But what is it you need to sort of come here with today and be focused on today as a start? Because it's going to be a little bit tricky right from the beginning if students haven't done any prep for tutorials because it's quite different to lectures. You can peek even and have a cheat if you need to. And what does today's tutorial relate to, as in assessment, or what theme of this study does it relate to, and what might I find challenging, or what have I already found challenging about it? It's drawing on the lecture about stakeholders. Okay, so did any of that challenge you? So just write that down. It's just a way of framing your thinking a little bit before we get started. So just take a minute, jot down some things. I can see a few people there on the chat room. Can you hear me?
Yes, Marilyn. Just wondering, are you showing any slides to the students? Because all we can see is the tutorial page on Blackboard.
Yes, no slides. By and large, this tutorial is very applied in terms of exercises. So when I talk about a different exercise to do, it's really a case of, if you're doing it at home, just get out your pen, paper, computers or whatever and do it at home. So it's no new content. The only time when I might bring up some slides or actually just refer to the Blackboard content is when I'm showing, for example, the assignment sheet. So it'll come directly out of Blackboard. So by and large, no. We don't use slides by and large. It's just discussion and practice. Yeah, so the first exercise was just the reflection question, so that's just personal, it's not marked or anything, so just to give a thought of what you were meant to bring to this week's tutorial, because that's really the centrepiece of the tutorial, that's what we start with. So fairly basic on content, but very applied in terms of exercises. Just let me know if anything happens with the audio though, okay? Yep. All right, so stakeholders. Definitions of stakeholders. Who brought one? A scholarly definition of stakeholders. Yep. Anyone? Do you guys want to take a minute and have a look through? Because that was really, like I said, it's a very student-centred tutorial. We don't have a lot of slides. We don't have new content. That's mainly lectures, so we talk about how to apply it. So if anyone wants to go back through, even have a look through the lecture slides from back in week 1, yes.
Just a person with a stake or interest in a business.
So a person with a...
Stake or interest in a business.
Yes, okay, excellent, yep. Particularly for, business specific, corporate specific, yep. Excellent, yep. Thank you. Because we're going to talk about this a little bit, but I want you all to come up with a few definitions yourself of stakeholders. Does everyone know where to start having a look on the week on stakeholders or the readings? Yeah?
Just adding on to what she said, so someone who's affected by the company's actions and therefore is interested in what the company does is a stakeholder.
Okay, excellent. Yep, that is. So affected by actions. Someone who has an interest in a business, yep. Anyone have anything else? What about anyone on the Zoom? Does anyone have a definition of stakeholder they found, a scholarly definition? This is really important for your first assignment, that you start thinking of definitions.
There was one that I used a couple of weeks ago at the lecture that I can probably share. And I guess it needs to evolve in the context of the assignment itself. But what I put in was that a stakeholder is anyone that has a vested interest in the outcome of a particular project or proposition. So any group or individual that has a vested interest in the outcome.
Absolutely, yep. Excellent. Okay, so far we've talked a lot about interests, outcome, affected by, yep. Great. Anyone got any new ideas? You don't have to. Do you feel like that covers fairly much what you took away on stakeholders? Yep. There is another definition by Fusser, 2009. This was just in your lecture, I believe, as well. Groups that have a stake or an interest in the firm, that is, they bear a risk. Groups that have a claim, a contract, ownership or right, or groups that have a relationship with the firm, affect or are affected by, influence or are influenced by the firm. You're going to find a few different definitions. We talked about this a little bit, I think last week touched on it. Now, the issue with definitions is that you will get different definitions, different scholarly definitions. And at master's level, usually one discipline to develop, one academic discipline, is to find a definition that you feel works, a fairly comprehensive definition. If you're not careful, stakeholders can be all or everything. We talked about this with publics as well. Try and find one that's a little bit robust, that will work for you when you're analysing your issue. Hello. So in terms of your definition, you want it to be able to work for you when you do your analysis, okay? But try not to have it as anyone who's even remotely related to the organisation as the broadest definition. Try and be a little bit more specific. Once you find your scholarly definitions, stick to them. So if you're choosing one for your first assignment, that's your definition of stakeholders. Use that as your anchor, go back. You know, if it doesn't work for you, consider another definition. So look at a range of definitions. People can even take bits from two different scholars, for example. There's a way to reference that. You would reference two authors. You know, so APA has a referencing guide as to how you would do that. It's not too difficult. It's just like the author name, the surname, and then a second one or a third one. So you could mix a little bit as well. Because, like I said, it can be quite broad. We talked about, for example, publics. Now, I don't want to touch on it too much because it's another week, but publics can be audiences that are impacted by a particular issue, for example. So not every stakeholder is necessarily impacted by every issue, right? Would you agree with that? I mean, stakeholders can be broader than a single issue. I mean, we're looking at things like stakeholders have a relationship with the organisation, right? That's what is quite common with these definitions. Whereas a public is very specifically a target audience around an issue. The way it's often talked about, and I mean, you'll get an idea from Anne when she does her lecture on publics, but the way it's probably talked about most commonly in this course will be impacted by an issue, because we're talking about issues, right, for this first assignment. So every stakeholder the organisation has is not necessarily impacted by your issue. So this is where you're talking about an audience. Now, when you read different scholars, some will use those terms interchangeably, stakeholders and public. So this is where I'm saying don't get deterred by it. You find your definition, okay, and be able to defend it for your work. You know, when I did some stakeholder research around non-profits, I found that tricky because there's very loose associations with a lot of non-profits and advocacy groups. You know, there's no money changing hands often, or not meant to be a lot. You know, people can come, they can go, they can be involved in a campaign, not in another one. It's really hard to come up with a great, robust definition for a stakeholder when you're not talking about investor relations and those sorts of issues. So I actually took one from the non-profit literature in that particular situation, which actually talked about everyone from they could be on the email contact list to they dive in and out of campaigns. It worked for me for that particular project. Yes, I had to defend my definition of stakeholder to some people as well, and why analytically it worked for that context, but also at the end of the day I could say there's a whole area of scholarship around using the term stakeholders in this way. So, you know, if you can do that, you're on safe ground. But let's just talk about a few of our definitions. What's common, do you think? What are some of the commonalities? What's some of the basics we'd expect to find if we're defining stakeholder or organisation and stakeholder relationship? What sort of ideas or concepts define that relationship?
Common interest.
Common interests, yeah.
Someone who's affected by the
Yep, effect, yep. So interest and impact. Some kind of reciprocity, do you think, has to exist? There's something that's given and received? Yeah, yeah. And don't forget, for people who are choosing to look at the issue for assignment 1 on government, that can be a little bit more tricky. We often think of it in corporate terms, but like I said, when you start to take money and finances out of it, you get into more ideological exchanges even, shared values even. So this is where you've got to think about how limiting or broad you want your definition, or inclusive, I shouldn't say broad, inclusive, you want your definition of stakeholder to be. Make it work for you, for the issue. What about, oh, yes?
Yes, Andrew here from Zoom.
Hi.
I think the more you search for a definition, the more you find that there is no clear definition and that they're still trying to find a common definition. Everyone.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
Still building it.
yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, stakeholder research, so to speak, is on the run, they say. It's always, research of stakeholders is something that's quite popular, actually, in this field. So you will find definitions evolve. But that's not to stop you from choosing from what is actually an enormously wide body of stakeholder research already there for you to be able to choose a definition for your purposes. So like I said, I had a research assignment. I chose a stakeholder definition that worked. You guys will choose one for your issues. Yeah, bearing in mind, particularly if any of you want to go on post-master's research and go a bit further, you know, it's an area of research you might be interested in more widely and different applications of it. So yeah, thank you for that. That was Andrew, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, just a bit, but certainly better than last week, but a little bit, you know. Okay, so what about the idea of segmentation of stakeholders? They're not necessarily a unified group. Anyone done any stakeholder mapping ever for any purpose? Sort of drawing up quadrants and who sits here or there, their relationship to an organisation. What we're going to do today is it's not stakeholder mapping as such, but a little bit of drawing and visual mapping of stakeholders. So this idea that you can also categorise them according to things like political, economic, social. Okay, so it's not to say they're more or less meaningful, it's a way that you can start to think of identifying stakeholders on a particular issue. So PESTO, social, political and economic context for stakeholders. Power, some people like to use the term power. They have power over an organisation. What would an organisation be without stakeholders, right? But some are obviously going to be more important than others. And when you're talking about issues, you're starting to get specific, right, into targeting stakeholders. Does anyone else want to make any comments or raise any questions on stakeholders? What about the different types of organisations and then the different types of relationships? So there's a lot of talk about business and corporate, and obviously at the QUT Business School, a lot's done on business, but it is also about organisations more broadly. So what other kinds of organisations other than business? Yeah. Sorry, was that? Yeah, government, and obviously government's one of the ones that you might be looking at as well for these cases. So what kind of relationships, as in think reciprocity, what kind of relationships might be between an organisation and stakeholder, different types?
Hi, Marilyn. Rohit here on Zoom.
Hi Rohit, how are you?
Good, thanks. So I'd like to weigh in on this question here. The relationship varies. It depends on the perspective of the stakeholder, in my opinion, and what they perceive as being important, and whether the organization that is identifying the stakeholders
Yes. Yeah, no, that is absolutely true, the nature of the relationship. What type of, I'm reluctant to use the word formal, but what kind of established relations might be between them? Like, okay, just one example, a common one, financial relationship between organisation and stakeholder.
I think the common one is where both sides think they have benefit from each other.
Yep. So that's what, when I say reciprocal, I mean, two-way benefits. So I guess I'm trying to get at what kind of two-way benefits what you could have. So there's financial benefits. So if you're staff, you're getting paid. That's one. If you're an investor, also, ideally, you're getting paid. There's some kind of profit that's changing hands. There are some more formal, informal, less contractual relationships. What about influence? Could stakeholders be swayed by influence? Political, possibly?
Like support organizations, like the environmental organizations or like groups?
Yeah?
Pressure groups.
Yeah, okay, pressure or lobby groups and environmental organisations, so there could be a promise of influence by association. Yep. It's just a way of how do we identify it. So start really broad, just throw it out there in your mind, who's everyone who could benefit in some way from this organisation, and also throw open the idea of what benefit might look like. Even, values, you can get into far more. I mean, if people are going to look at euthanasia, I mean, you're going to get really strong emotional reactions and values. And in fact, one of the definitions of a public relations issue is that there's strong emotions attached. So people ideologically attach to organisations as well, don't they? You probably could think of a few in your own mind that you don't receive anything particularly tangible from, but you might be a stakeholder. You might sign up to them, to their blog, to their communications. You might be a member of an organisation that pays some less tangible benefit to you. So the question always is, how important are the different stakeholders when we're looking at an issue? Okay, so that's a really key question. I think I've gone over a little bit of time there, but second reflection question, everyone at home too, if you just want to give this a moment, some thought, is just ponder for a moment what you want to learn from today about stakeholders, and even what that conversation, how that might be meaningful or affect how you might plan for assignment 1, for example. And then we're going to prepare and move on to a practical exercise. Would people find it beneficial to have a look at it? It's only on Blackboard, that 5-minute video on stakeholders that's posted there from last week before we move on. I mean, like I said, this is something you can access at home as well. But I'll just find it from last, might even be here, because it's only a short video, and if I can get it up, I just feel like it might be beneficial to have a little bit of a recap on it, and then we're going to go into a very hands-on exercise on stakeholders. So everyone on Zoom's all right there? Okay, so I'm going to just play a 5-minute video so we can refresh on it, and then just to give you an idea of where we're going to go with that is we're going to do a mapping exercise, or sorry, I like the term mapping, but basically we're going to draw a big circle around QUT, and I'm going to give you some markers, and you're going to start to think about who the stakeholders are that are attached to QUT, and then we're going to have a discussion about it. So like I said, today is just all applied thinking with stakeholders. So everyone there on Zoom, that exercise will be something you're going to have to do at home, but you're also free to share, and then I'll go around and talk about what some people have on their posters, and you can share anything that you have. So let's make sure this works.
Organisations and stakeholders. This slide deck covers a couple of the main foundational concepts in this unit. Organisations and stakeholders. By the time you have completed topic 1.1, you should be able to understand these concepts and relate them to the management of public relations. In the introduction to this section, we talked about what we mean by the term organisations. Every organisation operates within a specific context. An organisation's context is another word for the part of the overall business environment in which it operates. It's a bit like a sea in which it floats. It affects and is affected by this sea or environment. From a business point of view, what makes up this environment? An organisation's environment refers to its operational situation. From a business perspective, and particularly from the point of view of public relations, this environment is comprised of stakeholders and non-stakeholders. A stakeholder refers to any individual or group that has an interest in an organisation. That interest isn't necessarily financial, like a shareholder though. The key phrase here is they are people who affect or are affected by an organisation. Now, that is a pretty broad category of people for most organisations. As we progress in this unit, we will find ways to refine and reduce the number of people we try to reach with our communication. But for now, we need to understand the larger pool on which we are drawing. You could summarise these people and explain their importance by noting they are those groups and individuals on whom the success or failure of an organisation depends. Straight away, you can see why we need to know who these people are. After all, they effectively have the power of life or death over an organisation. Let's map out broadly who an organisation's stakeholders might be. Stakeholders are groups that have a stake or an interest in the firm. That is, they bear a risk. Groups that have a claim, a contract, ownership or right, or groups that have a relationship with the firm, affect or are affected by, influence or are influenced by the firm. Page 45. Here we have our organisation floating in the sea of its operating environment. The first couple of stakeholder groups that spring to mind, because they are the most powerful and influential for most companies, are employees and customers. And it's pretty easy to work out the nature of their life or death connection with the organisation. Next comes those powerful entities that have legal and regulatory power over an organisation, usually government and regulators, who are often closely related. Next come those who could be seen as the ones that have particular strength in bringing down an organisation: the media, unions and competitors. Then we have those organisations that work in association with each other, perhaps suppliers, transporters and similar companies. Again, it's easy to see how these companies are mutually reliant on the central organisation in our mind map. Last but not least, we have our community members. Now, when we say community, most people automatically think of geographic communities, people who live and work in a certain area. But community can also mean groups of people who share common goals and form around those goals to achieve a shared outcome. What does that mean? It means you can have communities of interest around certain topics or issues or hobbies. You can also have activist communities and communities of practice where professionals get together to work out the best ways of performing tasks in their work. As you can see, that's a pretty huge list of people, and the mutual influence between each of them and the organisation in question is pretty clear. But why do we, as public relations managers, care about them? Stakeholders are important to us as public relations managers because of the relationship our organisation has with those stakeholders. Our role as public relations managers focuses on the identification and management of organisational relationships with stakeholders. It's our job to first identify these relationships. Note that we are not creating them though. As Wilson, 2001, puts it, the question is not whether or not we have relationships, but rather what the status and quality of those relationships are. So to identify the relationships, we need to identify who our stakeholders are. Then we need to find ways to build, maintain, or enhance those relationships because these stakeholders are powerful entities. Remember, they are the ones the organisation's success or failure depends on. Once we've found those relationships, we have to watch very carefully for anything that might impact on them, especially if those impacts are likely to be negative. To do that, we have to monitor that operating environment in which our organisation is floating, to look out for issues emerging that might cause problems or create opportunities for the relationships between our organisation and its stakeholders. We'll come back to the topic of issues in section 1.3 of this module. For now, I'd like you to move on to the next activity in this section, where I'll ask you to reflect on your own role as a stakeholder. After that, there's a reading about a stakeholder approach to strategic management, which should make a lot more sense now we've covered the basics of organisations.
Okay, so that's a recap, like I said, on stakeholders, not by any means covering the whole variety of definitions, but just giving an idea. And of course, issues is really what all of assignment one's about. Next week, heads up to just to have a look at issue planning statements, for example, and that will start to get into that next step of tying in stakeholders to issues. So for everyone who's external as well, just to cover off the next exercise, what we're going to do is here at the university, which you won't have, we've got butcher's paper that everyone's going to have. So just, I don't know, if you still have an old-fashioned piece of paper and a pen, get it out or use your mind maps. So we're going to put big QUT in the middle, and then just start putting legs on it. So different stakeholder groups. Now I encourage you to start with a broad category. For example, staff, okay? And then, so if you have QUT in the middle, you had staff, and then you might have little legs on that. So you might have what, professional staff? Yeah, faculty, academics. Now, you won't necessarily know in depth everything about QUT, so, have some guesses, if you like. Have a look at QUT organisational structure too, if you want. But also, you can definitely, going wider than QUT, who's internal in the university, you can go out more the community at large or other organisations. There's been talk of media, all sorts of people, so who would have an interest? So I'm just going to give every table a marker, and if you could just work on that. So we're going to do that for about 10 minutes, and then we're just going to have some time of sharing. So I'll just get back to the external in a moment, and you can let me know if you have any questions on that. So there you go. Now what we'll do when we're sharing, I might look at the most comprehensive map I can find, and then if people have something to add, I'll share. They can share that. Sorry, is red okay? I normally wouldn't like to give out red, but there you go, guys. Might even get people to just come up and have a look. Is that okay? You guys know what we're doing there? All right. Okay. Back over here. So is everyone good with this? 10 minutes? Who have we got there? Andrew, John, Lee and Rahit. You guys let me know if there's any questions. Sorry? There's about 15, but there's 5 pieces of butcher paper that have gone out. So what I'll probably do is read them out, like go through them, or at least I'll read out one and then it'll be more like, has anyone got anything to add to that? If anyone needs recordings, by the way, there's going to be echo recordings of tutorials as well, because even though we now seem to have sound worked out on Zoom, the actual recording on Zoom is still a bit fraught with trouble. So just echo recordings.
I think so.
Just give me a hands up if you want me to come over, otherwise I'll give you all some space. Just identifying them. So yeah, broad categories, and then if you can, come up with some subcategories.
Thank you for listening and watching.
Five more minutes. You have a question?
I'm trying to explain it to my dear friend that I said business as a stakeholder.
Yeah.
Because, for example, like the film school here is constantly in touch with us for everything from internships to can we come in and lecture to the students, can we for that real world application
Yes.
to their courses. So with corporates, as in like businesses,
Absolutely.
they're a big
Yeah,
stakeholder.
yeah. And I could even, like if you had something saying corporate, I could just probably with some of my knowledge give you some ideas on how to even nut that out. So in, like for example, internships or consulting.
Industry knowledge.
Yeah, industry actually pay for consultancies as well.
Okay.
Or like you said, your industry, what's your industry?
The screen industry, so film and television.
Okay, fantastic. So is it like internships you
We do.
get?
So we're the government film and television organisation. So we fund local productions and help filmmakers get their projects up.
Okay.
And the other arm of our business is attracting international productions to
Okay,
come and film in
fantastic. All right, no, that's great. So like I said, could be internships, could be contracting,
Queensland. Yeah.
out to businesses, consulting. Yeah, this is where some of it is what you know. What about even guest speakers, just collaborators?
Yeah, that's it. Like we appear on a lot of panels here at QUT. and
Yeah,
things like that.
absolutely. There's a whole, for example, think tank called the Incubator for Social Enterprise as well. Yeah. So no, that's excellent. So a few more minutes. Sometimes it's a challenge still handwriting, isn't it? I remember my son going back to school after a really long break, and one of the other boys going back was like, I can't remember how to sign my name. I'm like, oh man. Spent a whole 2 months at home on the computer screens. How are you all going? All right? Yeah? Yeah. Looks good. Looking good. Pharmacy, associate, social media. That seems good. Or even, excellent. You might even make that more broad, like media and then social
Google,
media.
YouTube, or media.
Yeah, like media more broadly, and then, for example, social media, like just a possibility. But social media,
Narrow down.
Yeah. So just focusing on, sponsors, that's excellent. Transport, I'm wondering what kind of actor, like main category of stakeholder, like would you say, so you wouldn't say like your stakeholder is transport, like what does that come under? Sorry, what?
Shorter to the
Shuttle bus or the city cab. Is it the
Yeah, okay, so the stakeholder would be, I'm just thinking, would that be business? Would it even be council? Local council? I mean, who runs, I think, who runs the buses, or is that even facilities,
Or it belongs to.
or
like,
what about transport companies? Maybe
Yeah,
transport
it belongs
companies.
to
Yeah,
government, right?
Like sort of turn it into a kind of actor, like a not exactly a person, but a So transport companies, maybe. Yeah, I think that's a good one. I think no one's probably come up with that one yet. It's good. It's all right. How are you going? All right. It's looking good.
I feel like we missed something here. We can think of it.
Competitors, sponsors, alumni, anything yet? No, that's good. I mean, there's probably always quite a few more, but what we'll do is we'll go around sort of everyone's and we'll work out if someone hasn't said something yet who can add to it. So you can all maybe jot down some extra ideas as well. Yeah, but that looks good. Looking good. Okay, oh wow, you look like you've got a nice big fat chart. Well done. All right. Okay, so everyone at home there, I'm just going to start reading through some charts. Or actually, does anyone want to share theirs? Maybe we can start with you there for our externals. Okay, everybody, we might go around and have a look. I'm just asked if anyone in the external group want to share as well, so we'll see if anyone puts their hand up there. Okay, how about you guys go through your chart? So what we'll do is we'll just go around and perhaps particularly focus on if you have anything that someone hasn't already said. If someone's got something you haven't got, you might like to even jot it down or take note of it. Because I've got the microphone, I'm going to sit down with you.
Okay. Well,
what have you got?
Since I didn't write, I'm happy to speak. So with QUT as an organisation, we went with staff first, Marilyn. So we've got our academics and then our professional staff. Now from professional staff, basically all our support that are supporting ambassadors like us and supporting the academic, but also then we were saying, well, there's maintenance and then there's security and there's all these ancillary areas. And then there's also student staff as well that help with outreach and growth of the university through outreaching to high schools and things like that, and first year undergrad students as well. Students, another stakeholder. So we've got our international and then also our domestic area.
Overseas
students.
Yep. And also we also put in our student ambassadors down here as well.
Associations.
Student clubs.
Yep. Excellent.
Okay. Yep. The union, so the student guild. Okay, and they offer other areas as well. So the services like the lolly shop and the bar, and that they're all connected back, and they're all connected back then to QUT.
So they're like non-profit sort of organisations.
I think everything's reinvested back into supporting students and QUT services. Then we're talking. This is where we're up to just before we stop. So we're talking about services like charity. Approach and support areas. So there's counselling, chaplaincy, and then other demographics that are here to help staff and students. Okay. I'm not doing too well reading upside down here. Oh yes, the corporate partnerships. Yep. So we've got corporate alignments and that where they're coming in and they're partnering with QUT, particularly in the business school. There was a couple of examples that you had.
Like the Big Four meet that happened really recently as well. Then you get those corporates who come and facilitate the self-development programs and so on and so forth as well.
Excellent.
Different types of
Yeah, that's really good. And you can see, like, that's a fairly... Oh, sorry,
Oh,
yes.
And finally, we also had our retail, so we've got our coffee
Oh,
centres
yes.
and our food outlets, and
Bit of
you know, we've got
businesses,
everything here that's also supporting staff and students, and you know, the university cohort.
Okay, that's good. No, that's excellent, because you'll see that they all could have slightly different interests. And next week, when we look at an issue statement, we're actually going to fabricate an issue that happens at the university. So that might be something that you want to consider. So, yep, thank you. So then coming over here and maybe focus on something that you think is not captured. Is there anything I can see some different
You mentioned
things?
other things like competitors like UQ and Griffiths.
Okay, so competitors like UQ, Griffith, other universities, yep.
And sponsor.
Sponsors like scholarships?
Scholarships, yeah.
Yep.
Maybe.
Yes,
And alumnus.
Yep, Luminous, yep.
Alumnus. Government. I'm not sure. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, there is some government funding that goes to universities, so
Yeah.
that's one way in which government and policy, yes.
And the media that, I don't know, news or something can impact the QT's
Yeah.
image.
Yeah, no, fantastic. No, that's good. And I think faculty, student and staff are covered, yeah? No, that's great. Thank you, guys. Sorry, I'm just racing through so I can see. Is there anything on your list that you feel hasn't... I know one that's on this list here.
We have education agency.
Yeah.
That is important for QT because many international students need this agency to enroll the class or join QT.
Yeah. So did everyone hear that? Agencies that help students with their enrolments and their and living and things like that. Yep.
And we have government as well, but government include a lot of things. For example, the transport, city cats or shuttle bus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. No, that's really good. Yep. Thank you. So, guys, just drawing attention to one here was actually transportation companies as well, council, city cat, all the people who are involved in taking students to and from places. Thank you.
I think most of it was mentioned, but we also, as for external stakeholders, wrote down financial institutions.
Oh, excellent. So here we have internal, external. Thank you. That's good.
In case any students have student loans or something like that. And then graduates,
That's great.
if they have already graduated the university, they still have an interest.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think we haven't mentioned the partner universities yet.
Yep. Partner universities, yeah, okay, that's true. Like the different campuses,
Yeah, like
culture,
our
etc.
university where we came from.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's it.
That's brilliant. Yeah. No, thanks, guys. It's good because every group's coming up with something different. What about here? Anything else?
The walking billboard, the alumni.
Let's have a look, see what you've got. You've probably covered a lot. We've also got corporate, a fair bit of corporate here. So people who run internships, industry education, guest speakers. Okay, so they're all involved. The government for funding scholarships, contractors as staff. Yep, so we have teaching staff, admin staff, technical staff, venue staff, and actually researchers is a really big one for university, which can be treated differently as well. Yeah, no. But like I said, depending on the issue that comes up, let's just have a look over here and see as well. We're sort of pretty much running out of time, but who have we got here? We have students, domestic and overseas, staff, academic, administrative support. Yep. Media, okay, so we've got media's broken up here, local, state and national. That's important. I mean, what about international media? You know how much, education is one of Australia's greatest exports now. So the media is really important, really important. Government, all different levels of government. So this is good here. So what we have from John is a real breakdown of different categories as well into subcategories. Local community, example community groups in Kelvin Grove. Did you want to add to that, John, where you see different community groups playing a role, for example? Yes. Yeah. That's actually really excellent. And I like that traffic example. I know a lot of schools locally. I don't know how many people, you all look too young to have kids, but, you know, traffic's a major issue with educational institutions. Lots of complaints, lots of management. So, and I think that'll tie in nicely to some of the issues we're going to look at next week. Okay, so that's great. So we're going to be kicked out any minute now. So I just really want to draw your attention to what's here on the board. Yes, sure. Go ahead. Yeah, no, students have been mentioned in a few, but yes, yeah, definitely. Yes. Actually, absolutely. Students in high schools. Recruiting, basically. Students. Yep, yep. And also even running training and workshops and campaigns in high schools. So absolutely. Thank you for that. Was that Andrew? Yes, madam. Thank you. Yep. Yeah, absolutely, Rohit. That's a really good point too. IT services with things like this at the moment, we're trying to work out how to manage all different offshore students. So, yeah, thank you for that, Rohit. Look, guys, we're out of time, but you can email me as well. And also, can you guys just make sure you have a look at this for next week? Like I said, it's going to be hands-on like today, so your best preparation is actually just having a little look at the tutorial, so that it'll be the tutorial in the week, not corresponding with the lecture, but corresponding with the week. So next week, you know, week 3, you have a look at what you need for the tutorial. The issue statement planning template, that's what's really important for you next week, and the exercise will be a surprise. Yes, but what the issue will be a surprise, and then you'll be applying it. And also just have a look. There's some really good short videos on Blackboard. Like there's one that's about 10 minutes long about issues. It's worth having a little bit of a listen to, just to recap. Okay, guys. Thank you. Thank you, everyone external, for joining in. A little bit more successful this week. All right, I'm signing out. People are coming in. So I'll say good night. Have a good night. Thank you.